Chapter 20. Haley had been living with Wilder and Adrienne for a few days when she heard the staff discussing her, and that she would be leaving to go to school soon, and there would be one less person to cook and clean for. Asking Adrienne whether it was true, Adrienne replied, "I know nothing about that." Her voice sounded honest, her tone comforting. However, she appeared upset, hearing this for the first time. "Wilder would have said something to me. Everyone is welcome here, especially girls. There is too much testosterone for my liking," Adrienne had said to Haley with a sincere smile. She held her close, and Haley believed her, because Adrienne had given Haley the truth as she knew it. Leaving for horseback riding, Haley ran into Lysel pitching hay in the stables. "I hear you're going to school in a few months," he said, wiping his brow of sweat. He would know. She turned and sprinted back into the house, and ran directly into Wilder. "Are you sending me away?" Her voice showed desperation. He glanced at her. She looked into his eyes, and he knew he couldn't lie to her. "Yes," he said with no excuses. "Hunter wouldn't want me to go." "You know I'm supposed to marry him when I'm old enough," Haley said wide-eyed, with the look of a child in a fantasy world. Wilder raised an eyebrow, but never commented. He took her remark as childish banter. It was Hunter who made the arrangements for the school. "I don't need to go to school. I'll just run away," she said as tears welled in her eyes. Wilder didn't know what to do. He never liked to see females cry. He touched her shoulder. "The school is in Switzerland. We can visit you, and you can visit us on holidays." His voice was warm, not his usual cold standoffish demeanor. "It will not be a good idea to run away. We'll find you and just send you back." Wilder wasn't the most tactful person, and he wasn't used to dealing with teenage girls, especially humans. Adrienne was all he could handle, and Haley was a handful, and now he knew why Hunter was sending her away. After Adrienne and Wilder left for town, and after Haley had hung up the phone with Hunter, she found Adrienne's keys to her Jeep. She didn't stop to get money for gas or for food. She didn't even take time to bring a change of clothes. Haley checked her purse on her drive to San Francisco and discovered she had about $10. She would drive as far as she could and get out of the area before anyone discovered her missing, and then she would call Hunter, but she realized she had left her smartphone on the bedside table in her rush to leave before Wilder and Adrienne returned. On Interstate 80 she was headed west before she looked at the gas gauge. She had to make different plans because she hadn't prepared for her trip. She thought she could make it to Berkeley and then call Hunter or ask someone to use their phone. Haley thought how wonderful it would be to live with Hunter. He knew how she felt about him, and in time if she stayed around him long enough, he would learn to love her. Her ideas were the thoughts of a young girl who needed the love and the protection of a father, and she had none of that anymore. The only person she knew who could give her what she needed was Hunter, and that was why she had set off in a hurry without any preparation or thoughts of what disasters could lie ahead. Haley had been driving about an hour and watching the gas gauge, which was dipping low. A quarter of a tank. Haley didn't know how much the tank would hold, and she decided to use half the money to put gas in the car, and the rest to buy something to eat. Stopping at a station, she parked the Jeep and jumped outside and ran for the restroom. She was hungry and lonely. She paid $5 for gas, bought a cinnamon bun, and walked outside with it in her mouth. When she reached the pump, she saw a limo parked next to her. A man in a black suit and white shirt was pumping gas, and as she raised the handle to place the nozzle in the gas tank, she glanced over to see a handsome man in a dark blue suit, with amber eyes and a small beard. His window was lowered, and he was talking on the phone. It took her a minute of pumping gas before the pump shut off. She looked and saw barely a gallon of gas. Now was the time to ask the man to use his phone. He had a mysterious look on his face, and he smiled at Haley. She thought he was nice. He had beautiful brown eyes and a handsome face. He was maybe 25 or 30, not a father figure, and he wasn't threatening, so she walked behind and around the pump and stood in front of his window smiling. "Hi," she said in a childlike voice. Her voice sounded that way when she was nervous. "My name is Haley. I left my phone at my home, and I need to call my brother and tell him when I will be arriving in San Francisco." "Sure," he said, not hesitating. Haley put Hunter's number, she had memorized when she spoke to him, into the phone. The phone rang, and no answer. She tried texting and waited a few minutes as the man watched her. She caught him staring at her, so she handed him the phone. She thanked him and he said, "No problem. Any time." He smiled. She lingered looking around and then slogged to the Jeep, climbed in and drove off. Her heart was in her mouth the whole time she was driving, because she didn't know when the car would run out of gas. She didn't want it to be in a deserted area. It wasn't at night that the car stopped and refused to go any farther, but it was in a deserted area of Interstate 80. Reluctantly, she opened the door and stood outside after putting on her flashers. Haley waited and waited for a car or truck to pass. It felt like an hour before a black car pulled up behind her. It was the car from the gas station. The sun was getting low in the sky. She saw a burst of yellow and orange as the sun was approaching twilight. The back door opened, and the tall man with the amber eyes and dark brown hair stepped out. He was a handsome man in his own right, dressed in an expensive blue suit with a tie and cufflinks. He looked very professional and rich. He looked very inviting with his wide smile. He looked harmless, but he was anything but harmless. "Well, this is my lucky day. My name is Brian Anderson," he said, giving Haley his patented sincere smile. "My name? Oh, I said it before. I'm Haley Redmond." "What is the problem?" His voice was calm, and his gaze covered Haley from head to toe. "I have no gas, and I have no money. Could I use your phone again?" "I tell you what. How about if I take you into San Francisco, and call the wrecker to get you some gas and drive it to my estate? There you can call your brother, and if you want you can eat and sleep, and have your brother pick you up in the morning." The invitation sounded too good to be true, and as it happened, it probably was too good to be true. Haley thought, but what choice do I have? She had to trust someone. Even if she waited for the next person, she wasn't sure whether they could be trustworthy. "Maybe. But I would like to call him as soon as I get to San Francisco, if that's okay." He gave her a closed small smile, and Haley locked her car and climbed into his limo. "Oh, do I have to leave the key?" she asked, getting ready to get out again. "No." He placed his hand over hers. His hand was hot, but it might have been her. The wrecker can take the car without the keys. She watched him as he called to have Adrienne's car picked up. "Would you like something to drink? If you're hungry, I can stop and get you something. I know how you teenagers like hamburgers." "I'm 19, not technically a teenager." "Really? You look so young." "Hunter. Your brother." "Well, he tells me that I look 15. He's right. I wouldn't have thought you were 19. Brian smiled to himself. He wanted Haley. He wanted her to sire his cubs. She was young and beautiful. Her hips were wide, and he imagined her mating with him, but first he had to get permission from the female shifters in his pack. They had sired only females, and he needed male cubs to run his businesses. He liked that she was human. Maybe the females in his den wouldn't want her. He questioned, but then he was their king, and since when did they have any say in the matter? He would introduce Haley to his females and declare his intentions to mate with her, but first, he would mate with the older shifters one after the other, and they would have no choice but to bond together and take care of his half-human lion cub once Haley gave birth. Haley would be his first human. In the city, and being a prominent businessman, Brian couldn't take the chance of revealing himself as a shifter. He didn't know how his human partners would accept him. He had worked too long and hard trying to fit in. He couldn't risk it now, but in time he would risk it all to sleep with the human. After Haley drank a lemon Sprite, she felt sleepy. She didn't want to fall asleep in a strange man's car, but she did. Her eyes were heavy, and the 3-hour drive and barely little to nothing to eat had made her drowsy. When she woke, she was being cradled in Brian's arms as he carried her into his mansion. Looking up in his face, "What are you doing?" "You were asleep, and I didn't want to wake you." "Put me down." "I can walk," she said as he placed her on the stone walkway leading to his front door. The driver, a large broad-shouldered man, stood to the side and opened the door. Haley reluctantly walked inside the large home. Not seeing anyone in the house, Haley panicked. "Can I use the phone to call my brother? He must be worried about me." Then, from the right of the foyer, a beautiful dark-haired woman walked out with a long black robe on. She was a natural beauty with long black hair and olive skin. She walked up to Brian and kissed him. "Are you staying the night? Or are you just visiting us and going back to your suite in San Francisco?" "I'll stay. Tell the others we have a guest. Open up the room in the right wing, the one near my bedroom." The dark-haired woman shot him a willful glance. Chapter 21. Haley stood nervously behind Brian. When she saw a woman, her hands relaxed and she showed a wide smile. She extended her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Anderson. My name is Haley Redmond. I'm just going to be here for one night, and your husband has been gracious enough to let me stay, and is willing to take me into San Francisco tomorrow." "I have to meet my brother," Haley said, her voice shaky. Her instincts at first told her she had made a mistake, but she felt relieved after seeing the beautiful woman smile at her and return the handshake. "I'm sure you will have a delightful stay with us tonight." She glanced at Brian and raised an eyebrow. She took Haley by the hand and said, "I'll have something to eat sent up to your room. You look hungry. You can eat there as soon as you take a shower. You must want a change of clothes too, and rest." Her eyes never left Brian. "Yes. I'm tired and hungry." "Thanks, that would be great." Haley looked around as she was being led through the house to a room in the far right wing. For a house that large, she didn't see any servants. Nevertheless, the house was immaculate. Mrs. Anderson didn't look like the type to do any housework or cooking, because of her long nails, of which Haley took notice immediately. When they entered the room where Haley was to sleep, it was like a storybook room. Everything was white, with a large canopy bed. The beautiful woman in black gave her a half smile and left, closing the door behind her. Haley walked over and touched the drapes. The drapes were thick and made of silk. Haley pulled the drapes back, and to her surprise there were bars on the window. She thought nothing of it, because she was on the first floor, and the house appeared to be located out in the middle of nowhere. She didn't see any lights but heard the sound of horns blowing. She walked around and looked at the pictures smiling back at her. A picture of Brian and 3 women, all beautiful, and there is his wife, she thought, and the other 2 must be their daughters. Perhaps that's why he was so nice to me. He's a man with daughters. Looking closely, she noticed that they appeared to be the age of his wife, but she was too tired and happy to be in San Francisco to dwell on anything. Dropping her clothes in a pile, she rushed to the shower and turned on the water. It was warm, soothing, and refreshing. When she'd had enough, she dried herself with a large towel and walked into the bedroom to find a tray of food. There was a whole chicken of some kind, but it was small, and because she was hungry, it didn't matter to her as long as it was identifiable. She took a bite and found it was delicious. She had to remind herself to ask for the recipe. After eating all of the delicious chicken, she thought she would ask to use the phone. Adrienne and Wilder must be worried about her. She would tell them to have Hunter pick her up, but she didn't have the address. She walked to the door to call the beautiful dark-haired woman, but when she tried turning the knob, she found she couldn't. She pulled and twisted it, but the door was locked, so she tried yelling, but still no one came. It dawned on her that someone had locked it on purpose. But why? Haley yelled until she fell asleep and dawn was breaking. Now maybe she could see where she was, but all she was able to glean from her window were trees and more trees and heavy fog. There was a beach and the ocean nearby, because she could smell the ocean air. Then she heard a table being wheeled to the door, and she smelled eggs and bacon. Her mouth salivated at the thought. Now maybe she could get some answers. She heard a key being turned in the lock, and she ran to the door and opened it. Standing with the cart was Brian. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" His voice was upbeat. Why is he smiling like that? Does he know something I don't? Haley thought. Why are you keeping me under lock and key? For your own safety. He pushed the cart into the middle of the room. But why? You and I are the only ones in this wing. We don't use it much, and as you can see, it's expansive. I rarely sleep here, but I did last night. I didn't want anything to happen to you. I have a lot of people working for me, and you're a beautiful young woman. I just didn't want anyone to touch you. Are you a virgin? Why are you asking me something that personal? Brian rubbed his beard and his eyes widened, and he eased his long tongue across his bottom lip. Haley suddenly felt naked in front of a man she thought cared for her like a daughter. Where are my clothes? I need to phone my family. They will worry about me. Her eyes met his. Give me the number. I'll call them and tell them you're okay. What's your family's name? She thought about it, but she didn't have a choice. She would have to trust him. They are the Samsas. Wilder Samsa and his brothers own all of the land northwest of Lake Tahoe. Brian's eyes widened. Have you heard of them? Yes, I've heard of them, and I know Wilder personally. And you're not his daughter. He's a shifter just like me. What do you mean? You know what I mean. He's a wolf and I'm a lion, and we both are men as well, a shifter. Haley moved back until she touched the foot of the bed. She almost fell over it if it hadn't been so tall, and she wasn't so short. The towel dropped from around her body that she was clutching with both hands, and she stood before him naked, her young breasts calling to him, and his animal instincts ready to pounce on her and take her. He craved her, and he wanted to take her there on the floor. Bend her over the bed and make one push and open her up and drop his seed, but he had to wait. He would mate with all the females in the same week, and have them pregnant at the same time. He would make his visit with Haley last, so he could spend more time with her. Gazing on her young body brought a swell to his large manhood. He had business to transact before he could rest and lie with his pride. That was the only thing that stopped him from taking her, that and his females. He didn't know how they would react to him, bringing in a human. They were shifters of different kinds, and most times they didn't get along. That was why he stayed in San Francisco at his suite, to get some rest from their quarreling and jealousy. The panther and the tiger shifters were always fighting over him, and he had gotten bored and tired of them. That was why when he saw Haley, he wanted something different. Are you going to let me go to my family? She asked him. Why do you refer to them as your family? We are your family now. I don't think you want Hunter after you. I'm to marry him, and soon. I thought you said he was your brother. I suspect that you are just a runaway, and you're just name-dropping. I bet you don't even know the Samsas. You're just one of the humans that is fascinated with shifters. Well, I'm the greatest shifter of all. He walked closer to Haley, and she turned and reached for a sheet and placed it across her front. Do you think that a sheet would stop me if I wanted to do you harm? I could crush you with my hands. Brian raised his hands, and Haley's eyes followed them. He had the largest hands she had ever seen. He passed his hands over her breasts, and one hand covered her, but then he turned away. I'll see that you have everything you need. The only thing I want is for you to find Hunter and have him come to get me. Haley took the plate of food and threw it on the floor. When she raised the glass of milk and prepared to throw it in his face, he held her wrists and looked her in the eyes. She dropped the glass on the floor. Now calm yourself. You will learn to embrace this life. You will have everything you want and desire. Haley only wanted one thing, and that was to be with Hunter, and to be his wife and mate. I want Hunter, she said, her voice weak, but in defiance as she caught sight of Brian's heated, glowing eyes. You will soon forget him, because when I find him he will no longer exist, then you will be mine. He dropped Haley's wrists and turned and strode out of the room. Horrified and hungry, Haley fell on the bed. Then she jumped up, looking around. She needed to find a way to get out of there. She spotted the pictures and broke the frame and tried to pry open the door, but the door was solid oak and the locks were double-bolted. So she worked on the nails holding the lock in the door. No one would be back until lunch to bring her food, and she would work until then. Hours passed and still she couldn't loosen the lock. She heard a rolling cart. It made a bumping noise, as if one of its wheels was uneven. The noise stopped at her door and a key was inserted, and standing before her were two people. One had an armful of clothes, and the other was wheeling the cart with delicious-smelling food. The woman in her 40s walked in with a sour expression on her face, looked at her a few seconds, walked to the closet, and hung the clothes. She turned walking to a chest with a silk bag in her hand, and said to Haley, "These are your undergarments. This is all you will wear around Brian until your wedding night." "What do you mean my wedding night?" Haley questioned. The woman looked down on her and lifted her nose, then walked out, leaving the male standing near the food. "And what are you here to do? Feed me?" "Something like that. I'm here to make sure you eat. Brian will not like it if his new bride starves to death." "Don't worry, I don't plan on starving." Haley rushed to the table. "I could eat a horse. We have zebra, if you would prefer that to fowl." "I was just kidding. What are you for that matter?" "I know you are shifters," she said, cutting her eyes to him. But what kind of shifter are you?" Haley questioned, sitting down at the table, then picking up a drumstick and shoving it into her mouth. "Brian is the lion. He's master over all of us." "So I was told. And you, how do you rank?" "I'm a tiger." She stopped eating. "And Mrs. Anderson?" "She's just one of his many wives. She's a panther." Haley's eyebrow raised. "And do you get a chance to mate with anyone?" The tiger tilted his head. "He gets all the females." "And where does that leave you?" "To play with yourself at night." The tiger shifter's face changed. He furrowed his brow, clearly annoyed at her. His eyebrows met. "I mean, you're a handsome fellow. Why would you let him have all the fun? Haven't you wanted to get a piece?" "To get a piece of what?" Clearly he didn't understand. "Where have you been? Are you locked up on this estate and can't go anywhere?" "Yes." "Is anything wrong with that?" "Nothing, if you don't have sexual desires. Maybe you've been castrated." The shifter understood what that meant. He took a step in her direction, but thought better of killing her. When we commit to the king, we have to forego our sexual desires. We pledge to serve him, and in return he protects us from man. We have everything we need here. He has a game reserve where we can hunt and kill our food. So you don't want to have sex with a woman or a female of your own kind? There are few female shifters left in this area, and none that would choose a tiger over the lion. What about a human female? Have you tried them? I hear they love to sleep with shifters because of their large hands. He glanced at his hands. Why would they want to sleep with me because of my hands? Clearly, he didn't get it. You have to get out more. Haley thought he had missed the whole sexual revolution thing. Human females of all races were clamoring to fuck shifters. Haley walked over to him, touched his arm and said, "You are so tall and handsome. I would want you. I like you better than Brian. We could be together if you leave this place and take me with you." Anger passed over the tiger's face. He paced around and then he turned to Haley, his eyebrow raised. She backed up. Maybe she had gone too far. Maybe he would tell Brian. She didn't know how committed the tiger was to Brian, the king. Without a word, he strode to the door, then turning and taking one look at her, he backed out of the room and locked the door. She sank in the chair and finished the food before her. Then she heard a growl and roar, and footsteps coming in her direction.